today we're making the favorite cake of my childhood. And as per usual on my channel, making it a little better for you. I used to be literally obsessed with this cake as a kid and begged my grandma to bake it for me nearly every week. I haven't eaten it in a while now because my body hasn't been doing that well eating a lot of dairy, but things have recently improved and so we're back in business with this cake packed with quark. What you see me doing on screen is one of my favorite baking hacks, replacing a part of the flour with protein powder. The recipe calls for 400 grams of flour, and I'm using 350 only and replacing 50 grams with a pea protein. If you never used it before, I promise you it's pretty flavor neutral. It definitely doesn't taste like peas. There is no need to overdo it, and I feel like replacing more or less this amount is a good compromise. I don't want to cram too much protein powder in there and have my grandma come haunt me at night because of ruining her cake recipe. The amount of sugar tends to be another thing that I always tweak in traditional recipes. Here I'm using 130 grams instead of 250 and I think it's more than plenty. A heaped tablespoon of baking powder, 65 grams of cocoa powder, and 1 egg yolk. Now this is the scandalous part of this healthy cake. 250 grams of butter. I started with 200 grams, but as you'll see as I progress, it was impossible to get the dough to stick without using the original amount of butter. But considering the current nutritional trends where I see people eating sticks of butter, we should be fine, right? You'll rarely see me using gloves in my own kitchen, but I had a pretty bad cut and a plaster on top of it, so this was really the only way. As you see, try as I might with only 200 grams of butter, the dough just wasn't sticking together. I tried keeping the fat down and the protein up by using 50 grams of Greek yogurt, but nothing. So I went and added approximately 75 grams of tahini. It's also full of fat, should be a good replacement, or so I thought. But no matter how hard I tried to keep the protein content up and the fat content down, the cake just wasn't having any of it. So I gave it what it wanted all along, the remaining 50 grams of butter. At this point I realized that replacing part of the flour with pea protein might have been the issue all along, and decided not to risk the cake not being moist enough, and also went in with another 85 grams of Greek yogurt. And this is basically how I bake most of the time. I take a recipe, change the half of it and deal with the consequences. In the end, this wasn't looking too bad. The dough was sticky enough, there is a lot less sugar than in the original recipe and a lot more protein, not only thanks to the protein powder, but also the tahini and the Greek yogurt. Not to mention that tahini is also rich in calcium. I love taking cakes from something which is a guilty pleasure to something that's actually kind of good for you. What's not as good for me is the incredible mess I always manage to make when baking. Anyone else? Please tell me I'm not the only one. The dough is split in 2 parts and goes to rest in the fridge for an hour. In the meantime, the magic fairy comes and cleans my kitchen, just so that I can mess it up some more. We're making the filling for the cake and it's made with quark. Some may claim it's sort of like cottage cheese, which I don't completely disagree with, but I don't think cottage cheese would be a good replacement. Just find a store that sells German, Polish or Russian products and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find it in there, if there's any stores like that where you live. So we have 500 grams of quark and what was supposed to be a full package of cream cheese of 220 grams. Somehow a teaspoon was missing out of mine. We are adding 4 whole eggs and a bit of lemon essence, some vanilla, and I just had 1 tablespoon of leftover Greek yogurt, so I just threw it in there instead of the missing cream cheese. After a good stir and a quick mix with a blender, I added 110 grams of sugar, which is half of what the recipe called for. We'll be having this for breakfast and snack rather than for dessert after all. After an hour in the fridge, I took out the dough and grated it. Yes, you heard me right, grated it with a cheese grater directly onto a lined baking tray. This recipe, in fact, was listed as the grated cake in my grandma's recipe scrapbook. Then the quark filling is layered directly onto the grated cake dough. Somehow, miraculously, the layers don't just blend together but stay nice and separate. Once the filling is evenly spread, we take the other lump of dough from the fridge and grate it on top. The longer the dough stays in the fridge, the easier the task, but there's no need to overdo it, and 1 hour is more than enough. Then it goes in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes at about 180 degrees Celsius. My kitchen smelled exactly like my grandma's kitchen used to when she baked the cake. The real question was though, did I sacrifice too much flavor by trying to make it too healthy? Or was it gonna be just as good? Cake from grandma is cake from grandma, of course. But I think, considering this was a healthier version, it was pretty darn amazing. I was curious how it would compare as breakfast food to cereal, for example, so I quickly calculated the macros. And while the amount of butter definitely didn't help us in the fat department, the amount of carbs and protein was not too bad at all. Definitely better than Cheerios and milk. Replacing the full-fat quark with low-fat quark could be a good fix if the fat content bothers you. I can promise you, nothing bothered me at all while enjoying this delicious slice of cake. Thanks for watching and see you soon.